If someone had told me a 45-year-old CEO would call me into her office on my first week, I would have thought I was in trouble. I never thought I'd find myself at my ex's wedding, yet here I was sipping champagne and forcing smiles. The Bay Ridge City autumn chill matched the coldness in my chest as I watched Rachel, my former flame of 5 years, twirl in her white gown. Gosh, she looked happy, happier than she ever did with me. Another glass, Judge Blake. A waiter appeared at my elbow, offering salvation in the form of bubbly. Please, I mumbled, grabbing it perhaps too eagerly. At 45, I should have been above this high school drama, but seeing Rachel with her new wife twisted something inside me I thought I'd buried long ago. As the night wore on, I found myself gravitating towards the exit. The fairy lights and laughter felt suffocating. I needed air, space, maybe a whole new city to forget this night ever happened. Leaving so soon, Morgan? Rachel's voice froze me in my tracks. I turned, plastering on my best courtroom smile. Congratulations, Rachel. It was a beautiful ceremony. Her eyes softened. Thank you for coming. I know it couldn't have been easy. Water under the bridge, I lied smoothly. I've got an early flight tomorrow. Big case waiting. She nodded, understanding the unspoken need for escape. With a final awkward hug, I fled into the night, my heels clicking against the pavement as I sought the nearest taxi stand. The next morning found me at Bay Ridge International Airport, blurry-eyed and caffeine-deprived. I'd arrived early, my flight wasn't for hours, but I couldn't bear another minute in that hotel room. As I approached the car rental counter, my phone buzzed, another congratulatory post about Rachel's wedding. I groaned, shoving it back into my purse. Good morning, how can I help you? The chipper voice of the rental agent grated on my nerves. Reservation for Blake, Morgan Blake. As she typed, another woman sidled up to the counter, younger, maybe early 30s, with chestnut hair falling in soft waves. Even in my grumpy state, I couldn't help but notice her striking green eyes. I'm so sorry, Miss Blake. The agent's voice pulled me back. There seems to be a mix-up with your reservation. We've accidentally double-booked your vehicle. I felt my judge face slipping into place. Excuse me, the brunette beside me shifted uncomfortably. I think that might be my fault. Lena Carter, I just made a last-minute booking this morning. Our eyes met, and for a moment I forgot to breathe. There was something about her, a vulnerability mixed with determination, that stirred something long dormant inside me. The agent cleared her throat. We only have one vehicle left in that class. Perhaps you ladies could share. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Me, Chief Judge Morgan Blake, carpooling with a stranger. But as I turned to decline, I caught Lena's gaze again. A spark of challenge glinted in those emerald eyes. I'm game if you are, Your Honor, she said, a hint of a smirk playing at her lips. Maybe it was the lack of sleep, maybe it was the lingering effects of too much champagne and regret, or maybe it was just the way the sunlight caught in Lena's hair. Whatever the reason, I found myself nodding. Well then, Miss Carter, I said, surprising myself with a genuine smile. I hope you're a good navigator. As we walked towards our shared vehicle, I couldn't shake the feeling that this impromptu road trip might be exactly what I needed to shake off the ghosts of last night. Little did I know, it was about to change my life in ways I never could have imagined. The courthouse buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy as I strode through the halls, my robes billowing behind me. The unexpected road trip with Lena had been a welcome distraction, but now it was time to focus on the week ahead. As I settled into my chambers, my clerk, Evan, appeared with a stack of case files. Morning, Your Honor. You've got a high-profile discrimination case today. It's all over the news. I nodded, reaching for the top file. Thanks, Evan. What's the words died in my throat as I saw the name of the plaintiff's attorney, Lena Carter. Everything all right? Evan asked, noticing my sudden pause. Fine, I managed, my mind racing, just surprised by the counsel. As Evan left, I sank into my chair, staring at Lena's name. Our shared car ride had been filled with easy conversation and laughter, a stark contrast to the melancholy of the wedding. We'd parted ways with a lingering handshake, and the unspoken possibility of something more. Now that possibility was complicated by the professional minefield stretching before us. The courtroom fell silent as I entered. My eyes immediately found Lena, looking every inch the professional in a tailored suit. Our gazes locked for a moment, mutual recognition, and a hint of panic flashing between us. "All rise," the bailiff called, snapping us both back to reality. As the proceedings began, I forced myself to focus on the case at hand. It was a discrimination suit against a major tech company, with Lena representing a group of female employees alleging systemic bias. Her opening statement was passionate and articulate, painting a vivid picture of workplace inequality. I found myself impressed by her legal acumen, even as I wrestled with the growing attraction I couldn't deny. Every objection, every sidebar, brought her closer, the faint scent of her perfume, threatening my composure. "Your Honor," Lena approached the bench during a recess, her voice low. "I hope our previous interaction won't influence these proceedings." "Of course not, counsel," I replied, my tone carefully neutral. "The court will remain impartial." She nodded, but I caught the flicker of disappointment in her eyes as she turned to leave. I found myself calling out softly, "Lena, good luck." A small smile played at her lips as she returned to her table. The case stretched on for days, each moment a delicate balance between professionalism and the undeniable pull I felt towards Lena. Late one evening, as the courthouse emptied, I found myself alone in the law library, poring over precedent, burning the midnight oil. "Your Honor." I looked up to find Lena in the doorway, her suit jacket draped over one arm. "Just doing my due diligence," I replied, gesturing to the books spread before me. "This case is complex." She moved closer, her fingers trailing along the spines of leather-bound volumes. "It certainly is. I appreciate your thoroughness." The air between us felt charged, laden with unspoken possibilities. I stood, suddenly aware of how close we were. "Lena," a clap of thunder interrupted me, followed by the sudden patter of rain against the windows. We both jumped, then laughed, the tension momentarily broken. "Looks like we might be stuck here for a while," Lena said, glancing at the darkening sky. I nodded, torn between relief and disappointment. "I suppose we could use the time to review some of these cases." As we settled in with stacks of law books, I couldn't help but marvel at the strange twist of fate that had brought us here. The lines between mentor and admirer, judge and attorney, blurred with each passing hour. The rain continued to pour as night deepened, our discussion of legal precedents gradually giving way to more personal conversation. I found myself opening up about the wedding, about the loneliness of my position. "It must be difficult," Lena said softly, her hand resting inches from mine on the table, "balancing the weight of the law with your own needs." I met her gaze, seeing understanding, and something more in those green eyes. "It is, but sometimes, the right case, the right person, reminds you why it's all worth it." The moment stretched between us, fraught with possibility. Then almost imperceptibly, Lena leaned closer. My heart raced as I felt the warmth of her breath, the slight parting of her lips. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room, startling us apart. Reality came crashing back, bringing with it the weight of ethical implications and professional consequences. "It's late," I stammered, gathering my papers. Lena nodded, her cheeks flushed. "Of course. Thank you for your insight, Judge Blake." As we parted ways in the parking garage, the air still electric with unresolved tension, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The lines I'd so carefully drawn were blurring, and I wasn't sure I had the strength or the desire to redraw them. The days following our near kiss in the library were a whirlwind of suppressed emotions and professional facades. In court, Lena and I maintained a veneer of detached civility, but the undercurrent of tension was palpable. Every objection, every sidebar, felt charged with unspoken desire. It was during a lunch recess that my carefully constructed world began to crumble. I was grabbing a quick salad at my favorite cafe when I overheard a snippet of conversation from the table behind me. "Can you believe Rachel's little sister is taking bark about David and Goliath?" I froze, my fork suspended midair. Rachel, my ex, the bride from the wedding. Surely they couldn't mean. Lena's always been the firecracker of the family. Remember how she came out at Rachel's engagement party? The salad turned to ash in my mouth. Lena, Rachel's sister. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The shared rental car, the instant connection, it hadn't been chance at all. Lena must have known exactly who I was from the start. I fled the cafe, my mind reeling. Back in my chambers, I paced like a caged animal. How could I have been so blind, so foolish? The ethical implications were staggering. Not only was I emotionally compromised in a high-profile case, but I was harboring feelings for my ex's sister. A soft knock interrupted my spiral of self-recrimination. Lena stood in the doorway, concern etched on her features. "Your Honor, are you all right? You seemed upset when you left the cafe."
Piece of my title stung.
A reminder of the professional barriers between us. I turned away, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you tell me, Lena? About Rachel?" The silence that followed was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I wanted to, so many times, but I was afraid."
Afraid.
Afraid. I whirled to face her, anger and hurt warring within me.
Afraid you'd push me away.
That you'd see me as just an extension of your past with Rachel, instead of who I am. The raw honesty in her voice deflated my anger. I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. "And who are you, Lena? Because right now, I'm not sure I know." She moved closer, her green eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I'm someone who's been drawn to you since the moment we met. Someone who admires your strength, your integrity. Someone who wants to fight for justice, just like you do." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the sincerity in her words. When I opened them, Lena was kneeling beside my chair, her hand hovering uncertainly near mine. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but please believe me, Morgan. My feelings for you are real." The use of my first name sent a shiver through me. Against my better judgment, I found myself reaching for her hand. A crack of thunder made us both jump. We turned to see rain lashing against the windows, mirroring the storm of emotions inside me. "Looks like we're trapped again," Lena said with a wry smile. Despite everything, I felt a laugh bubble up. At least it's not the library this time. As the storm raged outside, we talked, really talked, about Rachel, about the case, about the growing connection between us that neither of us could deny. The ethical implications still loomed large, but in that moment, they felt distant compared to the intensity of what we were sharing. Hours passed, the sky darkening beyond the rain-streaked windows. Our conversation had moved us to the small couch in my chambers, our bodies unconsciously drawing closer with each passing minute. "Morgan," Lena murmured, her fingers tracing patterns on my hand. "I know this is complicated, but I can't pretend I don't feel something for you." I knew I should pull away, recuse myself from the case, put an end to this before it went any further. But as I looked into Lena's eyes, I saw a reflection of my own longing, my own need for connection. "Damn it," I whispered, and closed the distance between us. The kiss was electric, years of pent-up emotion pouring out in a single moment. Lena's lips were soft, yielding, then hungry against mine. My hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer as the storm raged forgotten, outside. When we finally broke apart, breathless and flushed, reality came crashing back. The gravity of what we'd done, of what it could mean for both our careers, settled over us like a heavy blanket. "We can't," I said, even as every fiber of my being screamed otherwise. "The case, our positions," Lena nodded, her eyes still dark with desire. "I know, but Morgan, I can't just walk away from this. From you." I stood, putting physical distance between us, even as my heart ached to close it again. "We need time, space to think clearly." "And after the case?" Lena asked, a note of hope in her voice. I met her gaze, allowing myself one last moment of vulnerability. "I don't know, but I do know that whatever this is between us, it's not something I can easily forget." As Lena left my chambers, the storm finally breaking outside, I felt as though I stood on the edge of a precipice. Behind me lay the safety of my carefully ordered life. Ahead, a future full of uncertainty, ethical dilemmas, and the promise of something I'd thought I'd never find again. The question was, did I have the courage to take that leap? The days following our stolen moment in my chambers were a tightrope walk of professionalism, and barely contained desire. In court, Lena and I maintained a facade of detached civility, but every shared glance felt charged with unspoken promises. As the case gained traction, so did the media circus surrounding it. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, hungry for any morsel of information. I caught a glimpse of a headline as I hurried past: Judge Blake, impartial arbiter, or biased insider. My stomach churned. How much did they know? How much did they suspect? In my chambers, I pored over every decision, every ruling, desperate to prove my impartiality. But late at night, when the courthouse emptied and silence reigned, I couldn't deny the way my thoughts invariably turned to Lena. It was during one of these late nights that my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, my ex, Lena's sister. The tangled web we'd wove felt suffocating. Family dinner tomorrow night. It would mean a lot if you came. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the decline button. But a masochistic curiosity won out. Maybe seeing Rachel happy with her new wife would finally give me the closure I needed to move on. With Lena, the next evening found me on Rachel's doorstep, a bottle of wine clutched like a lifeline. The door swung open, revealing Rachel's beaming face. "Morgan, I'm so glad you came." She pulled me into a hug that felt both familiar and foreign. Inside, the scene was one of domestic bliss. Rachel's wife, Nadia, greeted me warmly. Photos of their wedding, the very one I'd attended in misery, adorned the walls, and there, in the corner, stood Lena. Our eyes met across the room, a jolt of electricity passing between us. She looked stunning in a simple black dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. I swallowed hard, suddenly regretting my decision to come. Dinner was a study in exquisite torture. Rachel regaled us with honeymoon stories, while Nadia interjected with loving glances. Lena sat across from me, our knees occasionally brushing under the table, sending sparks through my entire body. "So Morgan," Rachel said, refilling my wine glass, "how's the big case going?" Lena's been pretty tight-lipped about it. I nearly choked on my drink. "It's progressing. You know I can't discuss details." Of course, Rachel laughed. "Just thought I'd ask. It's not every day my little sister goes up against my ex in court." The room fell silent, the elephant we'd all been ignoring, suddenly trumpeting loudly. Nadia cleared her throat, clearly sensing the tension. "Who's ready for dessert?" As Nadia and Rachel cleared the plates, I found myself alone with Lena in the living room. The air felt thick with unspoken words. "I'm sorry," Lena said softly. "I didn't know she'd invited you." I shook my head, moving closer. "It's not your fault. Seeing you here with them, it's a lot." Lena's hand found mine, hidden from view behind the couch. "I know. But Morgan, being here, watching you with Rachel, it only confirms what I already knew. What I feel for you, it's real. It's not about the past or the case, or anything else. It's just us." Her words washed over me like a balm, soothing the doubts that had plagued me. I leaned in, propriety be damned, my lips a breath away from hers. The sound of dishes clattering in the kitchen jolted us apart. Rachel and Nadia returned, bearing slices of cheesecake and blissfully unaware of the moment they had interrupted. As I left that night, the cool Bay Ridge city air a welcome relief, my phone buzzed. A text from Lena: "My office tomorrow. We need to talk." The next day, I found myself outside Lena's law firm, my heart pounding as I raised my hand to knock. The door swung open. Lena pulled me inside, her eyes wild. "We have a problem," she said, thrusting a newspaper into my hands. The headline screamed at me: "Judge's Chambers of Secrets. Insider claims romantic relationship taints big tech trial." I breathed, scanning the article. It was all speculation, no hard evidence, but the implications were clear. Lena paced the small office. "What do we do? If this gets traction, it could derail the entire case. Everything these women have fought for." I sank into a chair, the weight of our actions crushing down. I should recuse myself. It's the only way to salvage the case's integrity. "No." Lena knelt before me, her hands gripping mine. "Morgan, you're the best judge for this case. Your record of impartiality, your understanding of the issues at stake. We can't let some tabloid gossip derail justice. I met her gaze, seeing the fire that had first drawn me to her. Lena, be reasonable. If there's even a hint of impropriety. She silenced me with a kiss, fierce and desperate. When she pulled back, her eyes shone with determination. Then we fight. We prove that our personal lives have no bearing on the case. We show them that two women can be professional and passionate. That love doesn't negate justice. Love, the word hung between us, unspoken until now. I cupped her face, my thumb tracing her cheekbone. You know this won't be easy. The scrutiny, the accusations. Lena smiled, a mix of defiance and tenderness. Nothing worth fighting forever is. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms in the sanctuary of her office, I felt a shift. The fear and doubt that had plagued me gave way to resolve. Whatever came next, whatever challenges we faced, we would face them together. The line between personal and professional had irrevocably blurred, but in that moment, with Lena by my side, I was ready to redraw it on our own terms. The next morning, I sat in my chambers, staring at the motion for recusal on my desk. My pen hovered over the signature line, a war raging within me. On one side, decades of legal ethics and professional integrity. On the other, Lena's impassioned plea, and the undeniable pull of my heart. A soft knock interrupted my internal struggle. Evan, my clerk, entered with a stack of briefs. Your Honor, the press is in a frenzy out there. They're demanding a statement about the allegations. I nodded, my decision crystallizing. Thank you, Evan. Could you ask Miss Carter to join me in chambers? We need to discuss the case. As Evan left, I picked up the recusal motion, and with a deep breath, tore it in half. Lena arrived moments later, her face a mask of professional concern, belying the spark in her eyes. You wanted to see me, Your Honor. I gestured for her to close the door. Lena, I'm not recusing myself. Her shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. But Morgan, are you sure? The pressure, nothing compared to the importance of this case, I finished. But we need to be smart about this. No more clandestine meetings. No more moments of weakness, at least until the trial concludes. Lena nodded, her expression a mix of understanding and longing. Agreed, but after, I allowed myself a small smile. After we'll figure it out together. As Lena left, her fingertips brushing mine in a barely perceptible caress, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We could do this. We had to. The next weeks were a blur of depositions, motions, and carefully maintained professional distance. Lena and I communicated through formal briefs and courtroom proceedings, our personal connection hidden beneath layers of legal jargon. But the tension remained, simmering just below the surface. Every objection felt charged, every sidebar a test of our resolve. More than once, I caught myself watching Lena as she eloquently argued her points, admiring not just her legal acumen, but the passion that radiated from her very being. As the trial neared its conclusion, the strain began to show. Dark circles appeared under Lena's eyes, matching my own sleepless nights. The weight of the case, coupled with our unresolved feelings, was taking its toll. It was Evan who provided the unexpected respite. Your Honor, he said one Friday afternoon. Don't forget you have that judicial conference in Northwood this weekend. I blinked, having completely forgotten the mandatory retreat. Right, thank you, Evan. As I packed up my files, an idea began to form. A risky, potentially disastrous idea, but one I couldn't shake. That evening, I found myself pulling up to a small bed and breakfast in Northwood Valley. My heart racing as I spotted Lena's car already in the lot. She met me at the door, a shy smile playing on her lips. I can't believe we're doing this, she whispered as we entered the cozy room. We shouldn't be, I admitted, setting down my bag. But Lena, I couldn't, I needed. She silenced me with a kiss, soft and yearning. When we parted, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I know, me too. That night, as the Northwood Valley stretched out beyond our window, bathed in moonlight, we finally allowed ourselves to explore the connection we'd been fighting for so long. As dawn broke, casting a golden glow across the room. I watched Lena sleep, her face peaceful for the first time in weeks. The enormity of what we'd done, of what it could mean for both our careers, settled over me like a heavy blanket. But as Lena stirred, her eyes finding mine with a sleepy smile, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Whatever consequences awaited us back in Bay Ridge City, this moment, this connection, felt right in a way nothing else had in years. We spent the day driving through sun-dappled vineyards, stealing kisses between wine tastings and gourmet meals. For a few precious hours, we weren't Judge Blake and Counselor Carter. We were just Morgan and Lena, two women exploring the beginnings of something beautiful. As we reluctantly packed to return to reality, Lena paused, her hand on my arm. "Morgan, whatever happens when we get back, I want you to know that it's real. It's not just some fling, or a reaction to the stress of the trial." I silenced her with a gentle kiss. "I know. For me too. We'll figure it out, Lena, together." The drive back to Bay Ridge City was filled with a comfortable silence, our hands intertwined on the center console. As the city skyline came into view, reality began to creep back in. "Back to being Judge Blake and Miss Carter," Lena said with a rueful smile, as we approached her apartment. I squeezed her hand. "For now, but not forever." As I watched Lena disappear into her building, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. "Emergency motion filed. Hearing tomorrow morning." It's about the rumors. My stomach dropped. The bubble of our Northwood getaway burst, leaving behind the cold reality of what we faced. As I drove home, my mind raced with potential outcomes, strategies, defenses, but underneath the professional concern, a warmth remained, the memory of Lena's smile, the feel of her skin against mine, the promise of a future together. It gave me strength. Whatever storm was brewing, we would weather it together. The courthouse was a hive of activity as I arrived the next morning, my judicial robes, feeling more like armor than ever before. Reporters swarmed the steps, shouting questions about my relationship with Lena and the integrity of the trial. I pushed through, stone-faced, my mind racing with the potential fallout of our Napa getaway. Inside my chambers, Evan waited with a grim expression and a thick folder. "It's bad, Your Honor," he said, handing me the emergency motion. "Someone claiming to be a former clerk has come forward with allegations of your involvement with Miss Carter. They're demanding your immediate recusal and a mistrial." I skimmed the document, my stomach churning. The allegations were vague, but the implication was clear. Our carefully maintained professional facade was crumbling. "Who filed this?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Evan hesitated. "Big Tech's legal team. They're claiming a biased judge has tainted proceedings." Of course. With the trial nearing its end and the evidence stacked against them, they were grasping at straws. But this particular straw had the potential to unravel everything. A soft knock interrupted us. Lena stood in the doorway, her face pale but determined. "Your Honor, may I have a word?" I nodded, dismissing Evan with a grateful smile. As the door closed, Lena's professional demeanor crumbled. "Morgan, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't suggested Northwood," I shook my head, cutting her off. "We both made that decision, Lena, and I don't regret it." She moved closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do we do now?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Judge Blake, this is Maya Liu, from the State Bar Association. We need to speak immediately regarding the allegations against you and Miss Carter." My blood ran cold. The Bar Association. This was no longer just about the trial, or our careers. Our very ability to practice law was now at stake. I showed Lena the message, watching as the color drained from her face. "Gosh, Morgan, I never meant for this to happen. Your career, everything you've worked for." I silenced her with a gentle touch to her cheek. "Hey, we're in this together, remember?" She nodded, leaning into my touch for just a moment, before straightening up, her lawyer face sliding back into place. "Okay, so we fight. We deny any impropriety, stick to the facts of the case. Your rulings have been fair and unbiased. We can prove that." I smiled.
despite the gravity of the situation. This was the Lena I'd fallen for, fierce, determined, ready to take on the world. Agreed. But Lena, if it comes down to it, if it's a choice between the case and us. She met my gaze, understanding passing between us. The case comes first. These women deserve justice, no matter what it costs us personally. The next few hours were a whirlwind of emergency hearings, passionate arguments, and tense negotiations. Lena and I maintained our professional distance in the courtroom, but I could feel her support radiating across the aisle. As the day wore on, it became clear that the allegations, while damaging, were largely circumstantial. Our professional conduct throughout the trial spoke louder than vague accusations of impropriety. But the whispers persisted. I could see the doubt in some jurors' eyes, the speculation among the gallery. The shadow of scandal threatened to overshadow the merits of the case itself. It was during a recess, as I paced my chambers trying to find a way forward, that an unexpected ally emerged. Rachel, my ex, burst through the door, her face a mix of concern and determination. "Morgan, what the hell is going on? I just saw the news." I sighed, too exhausted to maintain pretenses. "It's complicated, Rachel. Lena and we're in love," she finished, surprising me. I saw it at dinner that night. I didn't want to believe it. I sank into my chair, the weight of everything finally crashing down. I never meant for this to happen. "But Rachel, what Lena and I have, it's real. And now it might cost us everything." Rachel was quiet for a moment, then straightened up, a familiar glint of determination in her eye. "Not if I have anything to say about it. Morgan, you're one of the most ethical people I know. If you say you can remain impartial in this case, I believe you, and I'm going to make sure everyone else does too." Before I could respond, she was out the door, already dialing her phone. I sat there, stunned by the unexpected support from my ex-girlfriend. As the day drew to a close, the tide began to turn. Rachel, true to her word, had rallied support from colleagues and community leaders. Character witnesses came forward, testifying to my integrity and Lena's dedication to justice. The final blow to the allegations came from an unexpected source. Nadia, Rachel's wife, provided a sworn statement about our dinner together, emphasizing the professional distance Lena and I had maintained despite obvious chemistry.
By the time the emergency hearing concluded, the motion for recusal had been denied. The trial would continue with me on the bench. As the courthouse emptied, I found Lena waiting in my chambers, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I closed the distance between us, propriety be damned, and pulled her into a fierce embrace. "No," I murmured, into her hair. "You did it, your strength, your integrity. Lena, you amaze me today." She pulled back, her hands framing my face. We amazed each other. "But Morgan, what happens now? The case isn't over, and the scrutiny." I silenced her with a soft kiss, pouring all my love and admiration into the gesture. "Now," I said, as we parted, "we finish what we started. We win this case. We get justice for those women." And then, Lena smiled, hope blooming in her eyes. "And then," I took her hand, squeezing it gently, "and then we figure out our happily ever after. Together." As we left the courthouse hand in hand for the first time in public, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Lena by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next. The final days of the trial were a testament to our resilience. Lena and I maintained a careful professional distance in the courtroom, but the energy between us was palpable. Every objection, every cross-examination, crackled with unspoken connection. As closing arguments approached, the pressure mounted. The media circus outside the courthouse grew, with reporters speculating wildly about our relationship. But inside, we remained focused on the task at hand: justice for the women who had been wronged by big tech's discriminatory practices. The night before closing arguments, I found myself unable to sleep. The weight of the impending decision, coupled with the uncertain future of my relationship with Lena, left me restless. As I paced my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text. "Can't sleep either," Lena's message read. I smiled, feeling a flutter in my chest. Not a wink, too much on my mind. Meet me at our spot. I hesitated, knowing we were treading dangerous waters, but the need to see her, to draw strength from her presence, won out. 30 minutes later, I found myself at the small park near the courthouse, where we'd often shared lunch during the trial. Lena was already there, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking softer and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her in court. "Hey," she said softly, as I approached. "Hey yourself," I replied, fighting the urge to pull her close. We sat on a bench, close but not touching, the city lights twinkling around us. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" I asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Lena nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "As ready as I'll ever be. These women deserve justice, Morgan, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get it for them." I smiled, feeling a surge of pride and affection. "I have no doubt you will. Your passion, your dedication, it's inspiring, Lena." She turned to me, her expression softening. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, you know. Your strength, your integrity, it's given me the courage to keep fighting, even when it seemed impossible." Our hands found each other in the darkness, fingers intertwining. The simple touch sent sparks through my entire body. "Lena," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, "whatever happens tomorrow, whatever the verdict, I want you to know that I." She silenced me with a gentle finger to my lips. "I know, Morgan. Me too, but let's save those words for after the trial, okay? When we can say them without any shadows hanging over us." I nodded, understanding the wisdom in her words. We sat there for a while longer, drawing strength and comfort from each other's presence, before reluctantly parting ways. The next morning, the courtroom was packed to capacity as I took my place on the bench. I caught Lena's eye. She gave me a small determined nod, and I felt a surge of confidence. Closing arguments were a masterclass in legal oratory. Big Tech's lawyers presented a polished defense, but it paled in comparison to Lena's impassioned plea for justice. As she spoke, painting a vivid picture of systemic discrimination and the courage of the women who stood up against it, I felt a swell of pride so strong it was almost overwhelming. When the jury retired to deliberate, the waiting game began. Hours stretched into days, the tension in the courthouse building with each passing moment. Lena and I maintained our distance, communicating only through brief professional exchanges. On the third day of deliberations, as I sat in my chambers reviewing case notes, a commotion erupted outside. I opened my door to find Evan, my clerk, practically vibrating with excitement. "They're back, Your Honor." The jury's reached a verdict. The courtroom fell silent as I entered, the air thick with anticipation. I caught Lena's eye, as she stood with her clients, her expression a mix of hope and nerves. As the jury foreman read out the verdict, a resounding victory for Lena's clients, with substantial damages awarded, the courtroom erupted. Cheers and sobs of relief filled the air. Through the chaos, my gaze found Lena's. The joy and pride shining in her eyes mirrored my own emotions. In that moment, all the struggles, the doubt, the fear, it all felt worth it. As the courtroom slowly emptied, reporters clamoring for statements outside, I found myself alone with Lena. We stood facing each other, the weight of everything we'd been through hanging between us. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I nodded, unable to find words adequate to express what I was feeling. Instead, I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "Morgan," Lena began, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I know we said we'd wait until after the trial, but I can't hold it in any longer." A knock at the door interrupted us. Rachel stood there, a proud smile on her face. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a horde of reporters outside demanding statements, and I thought you might want some support facing them." Lena and I exchanged a look, an unspoken agreement passing between us. It was time to face the world together. As we stepped out onto the courthouse steps, cameras flashing and reporters shouting questions, I felt Lena's hand slip into mine. The gesture, so simple yet so profound, sent a clear message to everyone watching. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "Today, justice has been served. But more than that, a message has been sent. Love in all its forms cannot and will not be used to undermine the pursuit of justice." Lena squeezed my hand, stepping forward to add her own statement. As she spoke eloquently about the significance of the verdict, I watched her with a heart full of pride and love. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, both personal and professional. But as we stood there, united in our commitment to justice and to each other, I knew we could face anything together. The months following the landmark verdict were a whirlwind of change and adjustment. Lena and I navigated the choppy waters of public scrutiny, our relationship now thrust into the spotlight. But through it all, our bond only grew stronger. As the dust settled, we found ourselves facing new challenges. The State Bar Association, while ultimately clearing us of any ethical violations, recommended I take a sabbatical to avoid any appearance of impropriety. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one I accepted with as much grace as I could muster. Lena, riding high on her victory, was offered a partnership at a prestigious civil rights firm. We spent countless nights discussing the opportunity, weighing the pros and cons of a potential long-distance relationship. "I don't want to leave you," Lena said one evening, as we sat on my balcony, the Bay Ridge city skyline twinkling before us. I took her hand, bringing it to my lips. "You're not leaving me, you're following your dreams, and I'll be right here cheering you on every step of the way." She smiled, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. How did I get so lucky? As autumn painted the city in shades of gold and red, we found ourselves back where it all began, Rachel and Nadia's home. This time, however, the atmosphere was markedly different. Rachel greeted us with warm hugs, any lingering awkwardness long since dissipated. Nadia bustled about, putting the finishing touches on what smelled like an incredible meal. "I can't believe you're really leaving us," Rachel said to Lena as we settled in the living room. Lena squeezed my hand. "It's only temporary, and with technology these days, it'll be like I never left." As we gathered around the dinner table, the conversation flowed easily. We laughed about the absurdity of the past year, marveled at the twists of fate that had brought us all together. "You know," Nadia said, refilling our wine glasses, "when Rachel first told me about her ex dating her sister, I thought it was going to be a disaster." We all chuckled, the tension of those early days now a distant memory. "But seeing you two together," Nadia continued, her expression softening, "it's clear this is meant to be." Rachel raised her glass, "To love in unexpected places." As we clinked glasses, I caught Lena's eye across the table. The love and certainty I saw there made my heart swell. Later that night, as we walked hand in hand through the cool Bay Ridge city streets, Lena suddenly stopped. "Morgan," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I know we've talked about the future, about making this work long distance, but I've been thinking." My heart raced as she dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from her pocket. "I don't want to start this new chapter of my life without you by my side. Morgan Blake, will you marry me?" Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, pulling her up into a passionate kiss. Passers-by cheered, but I barely noticed, lost in the moment with the woman I loved. As we broke apart, breathless and grinning, Lena slipped the ring onto my finger. The weight of it felt right, like a promise of the future we'd build together. "So," Lena said, her eyes twinkling with mischief, "feel like taking an extended sabbatical in Eastbridge?" I laughed, my heart light with joy and possibility. "I thought you'd never ask." The next few weeks were a blur of preparations. We decided on a small intimate ceremony before Lena's move. As I stood in front of the mirror on our wedding day, Rachel helping me with my dress, I marveled at the journey that had brought me here. "You know," Rachel said, adjusting my veil, "I always knew you'd find your happily ever after. I just never imagined it would be with my sister." I turned to her, overcome with gratitude for her understanding and support. "Thank you, Rachel, for everything." She pulled me into a tight hug. "Just promise me you'll take care of each other." The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. As Lena and I exchanged vows under a canopy of autumn leaves, surrounded by our closest friends and family, I felt a sense of peace and rightness settle over me. "I, Morgan Blake, take you, Lena Carter, to be my lawfully wedded wife," I said, my voice strong and clear. "To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part." Lena's eyes shimmered with tears, as she repeated the vows,
her hands warm and steady in mine. As we sealed our union with a kiss, cheers erupted around us. I caught sight of Rachel and Nadia, beaming with pride and joy. The reception was a joyous affair, filled with laughter, dancing and heartfelt toasts. As Lena and I swayed together for our first dance, I marveled at the twists of fate that had brought us here. "What are you thinking?" Lena murmured, her breath warm against my ear. I pulled back slightly, meeting her gaze. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am for that mix-up at the car rental agency." She laughed, the sound music to my ears. Who would have thought a double-booked car would lead to this? As the night wore on, we said our goodbyes, ready to embark on our new adventure. With our bags packed for Eastbridge, and our hearts full of love and hope, we stepped out into the cool Bay Ridge city night, ready for our next chapter. "Mrs. Blake Carter?" Lena asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I squeezed her hand, feeling the comforting weight of my wedding ring. "With you by my side, always." As we drove towards our future, the city lights fading behind us, I felt a sense of completeness I'd never known before. Our story hadn't been easy or conventional, but it was ours, and I wouldn't have changed a single moment of it. The road ahead was uncertain, full of new challenges and adventures, but with Lena by my side, I was ready to face whatever came our way. Together we'd rewritten the rules of love and justice, and our story was just beginning.